me. I'm the chair of Citizens Above Partisanship. Before we begin, I want to mention a couple of things. First, we're very delighted that Commissioner Cort Meinelschmidt is here tonight. Cort is a little bit crazy. Yes. In the sense that he's going to, are you actually going to jump off the top and then do it, or do you start like out the window, or how does that work?
Top of the building, rappelling down.
Just start at the top and go down the side. He's going to rappel down which building?
The Alexander House.
Alexander House in support of the Boys and Girls Club. And so you can support him, you can sponsor that by making a donation to the Boys and Girls Club through a link that I'm sure is on your website or Facebook page or something like that. If you can't find it, email Cap and we will send it to you. So that's pretty cool. That's one of the reasons we like him. And then the other thing I want to mention is that our next meeting will be on April 29th, which is also a Monday night, back down in Hagerstown. We usually meet at the library. And that is going to be a conversation about districting and gerrymandering, which is highly relevant in our area, with Ami Hober, former congressional candidate from the 6th District, and Randy Barber, the chair of the Democratic Central Committee for Washington County. So that should be a really interesting conversation as well, and it'd be great if you guys were all interested in that. So with that, I will hand it over to Sean Bryce, our treasurer, who's going to talk to Cort about ethics and transparency in local government.
So good evening, welcome again, thanks for coming. I'm going to read a little bio about Cort, for anybody who may not know him. Cort's a first-time county commissioner elected in November and endorsed by CAP. Born and raised in Washington County. Lives in Williamsport?
Yes.
Cort served in the Navy as a rescue swimmer and has worked in the financial services business since 2004. He is currently the CEO of Sentinel Capital Solutions, where he is active in the day-to-day research of trading of Sentinel's investment portfolios. Cort further serves Washington County community on nonprofit boards and as a coach to the Washington County Special Olympics team. So Cort's here tonight to talk to us about ethics and transparency in Washington County government, what exists, what's been proposed, and we'll let him talk a little bit about that and then see how it goes. If people have questions, we'll probably take questions if it's a good time and proceed from there. Kind of loose and go with that.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for having me. And if there's a question, please, just stop in the middle of it. Don't wait until I stop speaking because I'll continue forever. But the big thing is that there's what we're talking. The first part is the ethics, and then we'll kind of talk about transparency in our local government. As everybody knows, over the last couple of years, we've had some ethics complaints and just a mess over the last couple of years in the local government. So one of the things that I was campaigning on is how the ethics committee is comprised. Currently, and by state law, our ethics commission or ethics policies are the exact same as the state law minimum. Okay, so that's where we're at now. And part of the law does have that we have to, the county commissioners have to appoint the members of the ethics commission. Well, those 5 members are the ones that will see if there's ever an ethics complaint over the board of county commissioners. And so when I heard that, and I think just like the nods in the room, that just doesn't make much sense. And so one of the easiest ways after talking to legal and trying to get this done is what I'm trying to do is have 5 community stakeholders, each with a different aspect of our community, to nominate somebody, 1 member each for a 4-year term to the Board of County Commissioners. Then the county commissioner can appoint that person. And of those members, of course, I wanted stakeholders in our community. So I've looked at, 1, I would like an attorney, so the Washington County Bar Association, MML, which is the cities and municipalities throughout the county, so that the cities and counties have a voice. The Meredith Medical Center, so they have a voice. The Washington County Teachers Association and Board of Education as a group would be able to nominate 1. They are our largest employer. And then the Chamber of Commerce, so we have a business on that member. So each of those stakeholders would be able to nominate 1 person to the Board of County Commissioners, and then they would be able to approve or disapprove, just like we do with judges and all of that throughout the state of Maryland. So that was the first thing, so that we're not nominating we're not nominating point that there's a second outside group. I think that's very easy. We've had a lot of discussion about that. That's going to be coming up to a vote here in the next couple weeks, hopefully early April. Is that's going to be coming up to a vote. There might be some changes on those groups and those things. One of the things I don't want is I don't want it to have the Republican Central Committee nominate one and the Democratic Central Committee nominate another. I don't want that. I think it needs to be taken completely out of politics and let the community stakeholders have the nomination theirs. So that's the first one. The second one is actually the policy of not having that state minimum. And this becomes a lot more difficult than just saying, hey, make it have teeth, or let's make it stronger, or anything like that. Because right now, it's just a financial gain. So for me to get a violation, it has to be a financial gain. And that's what we're trying to look at, is how can we strengthen this policy? I am the MACO rep for Washington County, which is the Maryland Association of Counties, and I think it was in December, might have been early January, I can't remember. I went down to their winter convention, and we actually had a big discussion on ethics, and there's a member there that's what he does. He literally goes around in the state of Maryland and helps work with those policies to strengthen them for the communities. So currently what's been nominated is that we have a group, again, not county commissioners, outside group, that would be able to review what our policy is, which is, everybody knows, is the state minimum, and then view some of the other counties' policies and then be able to come up with our own. Since this is an ordinance, we can get that changed. But what we don't want is this becomes some committee and bureaucracy that 3 years down the road, we haven't done a thing. So one of the things that's being proposed is that we actually put a 90-day limit on it and say, hey, you've got to come back to us within 90 days so that we can get this ordinance changed. So how that's going to look, I don't know. There's a lot of discussion on that, but the county commissioners, again, they want to be pulled out of that, so you don't have that, hey, this is what I want them to look at and not this. So they want to be pulled out of it, which I think is a very smart way of doing it. It's just it could take a little bit of time. So that's the ethics in a nutshell. So does anybody have questions on that or concerns?
I just have a question. Has there been any consideration to local governments, as in town governments, town councils? I know they have their own ethics commissions, but sometimes those ethics commissions are not effective. Is there any kind of escalation process where the county would be willing to hear a local complaint if there was, say, for example, a defunct or non-operating ethics commission at the town level?
I'd have to look on that. Okay, so I can't answer that now because I don't know if there's a state level requirement that says no, it can't go from city to county because then who's running that area. I'd have to look at that. I can get back to you with that information. I would assume. Yeah, I would assume that they're required to also be at the state level minimum. But again, is that just financial gain?
Yeah. So the way it works in my town is the mayor appoints the members of the ethics commission. So
this might be a new model for municipalities as well.
Right, to filter down to at the town level.
Yeah, and that's the thing
there are needed changes there.
Exactly,
for sure.
And that's the things. If we can get the people that are on those ethics commissions that are outside of just that little group, you can, one, get a different point of view, and two, I'm not the one appointing the person who's looking over me.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. And one of the things I'm looking at is that they're going to be a 4-year term that's going to start in 2020. So this board will enact it for 4 years, which will go into the next board midterm. So it's going to be crossing over so that it's, there's a little bit of a gap there, which I think, again, it's pulling the commissioners out of it.
So do you reset on the appointments because one expires right now in 20 and the other 4 in 21, right? Well,
the goal is to have them all expire in 2020. So the person that would expire in 19 would get 1 extra year, and then we'd do everybody in 2020. Or 2021, sorry.
So the existing ordinance has been in place since 2011.
Correct.
And that's financial disclosure, conflicts of interest, and lobbying interests. So you are also talking, the commissioners are also talking about expanding that.
Yes, expanding the policy. So it's not just, again, most of those are all to financial gain. The lobbying and all that, they come down to a financial gain. And that's what people really look at is you can have an ethics violation that did not give me money. There could be an ethics violation there, and that's what they're looking at. So.
Are these positions beyond ethics committees, commissions, are they kind of going to be advertised that these are, if we're interested, anybody, or how?
Well,
are you just going to rely on these particular board of?
Yeah, so that's how it is now. Currently, any of the boards or commission that are up that you want to get on, you can go on to the county's website now, and they actually have a form that you fill out saying, I'm interested in this board or this commission. And that's how it's now. Then you can go on to that, and you submit your name, and then they do the research, the background, and that comes to the county commissioners, and they do the appointment. That's how it's done now. So I want to get it away from that for the ethics committee, and then these 5 stakeholders would have the ability to advertise and market for one individual each. So, and then.
So it'd be up to them to advertise.
Correct.
Amongst their memberships and stuff.
Correct. Yes.
One of the issues that has come up recently is that of hostile work environment. And would this ethics commission have anything to do with examining that issue?
No. So that's there's another policy under basically HR, which is there's actually 2 policies. It's the complaint and grievance policy. So that's for the employees there for what that's under. And you are correct. We've heard that there's a lot of things that are being done because of that. And, because of personnel, I can't talk, but hopefully that's improving. If you have any specifics, if you'd like to talk offline, I'd love to hear about that because that's something I'm acutely aware of.
So that's a good question to lead up to why have an ethics commission between, we have laws, when people break laws, we have HR for different things, but the ordinance also covers employees in those 3 realms that we talked about.
Exactly.
So what role does ethics commission in an ordinance play?
Well, there's things that you're not breaking a law, but it's just not right to do. And that's really what your ethics commission is looking at. Because there's things that you could break the law, and of course you're broken the law, and that you're going to get fined and have that, but there's things in the political area that they're not right to do, and that's what we're really looking at. So, yes?
The lawyer that consults, that the Ethics Commission consults with, is the county lawyer.
Correct.
And they have the final say, it seems like oftentimes, on whether it's an ethic violation.
Well,
they advise the commission, and who hires that lawyer, and who is that lawyer responsive to?
So if it's the county's attorney, so then it would be the county attorney. The county attorney is responsible to the Board of County Commissioners, so the 5 members who they're responsible to. And
so they hire, and the county commissioners hire the county attorney?
Correct. So they appoint the county attorney, and they're an employee of the county. They do advise the Ethics Commission on the laws of there. There's also another attorney on that board. I don't remember his name, but there's another private practice attorney on that board. The attorney does not have a vote in that commission. It's just the 5 people, but yes, the attorney does advise them of the laws pertaining to the ethics policies. Yes?
Oh, we still elect county commissioners by political party. Now we move into this hybrid that you have where you have these stakeholders. So now you have these 5 people come into the ethics commissions. They're all Republicans. What does that do? Every one of them turns out to be a Republican.
Well, if the individual stakeholders nominated a Republican, that's why I'm trying to bring it out to the individual stakeholders of different groups. The Board of Ed, the Teachers Association, an attorney, the city, so we're getting different stakeholders. I wouldn't be able to control that. That's why I'm, again, trying to bring it out to 5 individual stakeholders.
But you don't see that as a possible problem?
It's definitely possible, but if you look at, not trying to pick on, but you look at the Teachers Association, they're mainly made up of Democrats. You look at the Bar Association, that's a mainly Democratic association. So I would say there's a higher percentage chance that they're going to nominate a Democrat. What I don't want this to be is a political organization. I want it to be community stakeholders. And so I think we should be removing politics out of the Ethics Commission. Yes.
I read that one of the other commissioners has some plans for the same thing. I can't remember which one.
Commissioner Kiefer, yeah. So
how are yours different, and are you working kind of like together?
yes, so we both agree on the nomination process. It's what those 5 stakeholders are. We're going to have a discussion on who those individual stakeholders are going to be, and then he's moving towards that committee of being able to look at the policy. So having a committee approach to look at the policy to get that updated.
Instead of the outside group coming in and helping them?
Well, they would be a part of that. So
Okay.
we've combined that together to say, hey, let's get this group so we can look at the actual policy.
And how does the rest of the commissioners, are they opposed, or?
I don't think they're opposed. I think everyone's heard, over the campaign trail that this was an issue. And so if it's an issue, people are going to listen, and we need to get it updated. So, and if there's a better way that we can come up with this, I'm all ears and would love to hear it. If there's a better way, I think we need to, everybody believes and agrees that it needs to get updated, but how can we do it in the best way possible?
In that short time, or at least reasonable time frame instead of forever.
Exactly, because again, I would like that in 2020 so that it's a 4-year term so that you're crossing over. It is what I would like, and we need to get it enacted to do that. And if there is legislation that needs to be done, if it needs to be done, depending on what that policy comes, we might have to do legislation. We would need that done next cycle, next session, so that that's done, so that it would have taken into effect July 1st. Yes.
Why can't you have just a position for an interested citizen that doesn't belong to any of those groups?
Again, that's how it's done now.
Well,
and that's.
But you seem like you're going towards specific organizations that tend to be partisan oriented. So I don't know how that's an improvement.
Well, I by the way I'm thinking is and again, if there's other better suggestions, I'm willing to take it. The way I'm looking at it is I'm having different organizations that all have a different aspect of the community. You're breaking it up, and not by political party, but by your association. Your attorneys. I want an attorney on the board, because hopefully they can look at the laws of Maryland and say what we can or cannot be done. I think having a business member, having somebody from the Board of Ed, I think those are good stakeholders. Having somebody from the towns, and that that can be. Those are all different levels. The community stakeholder, that's how it's done now. And if you can come up with a good way that's nominated out, I'd be all ears. I just don't know how to do that without how it's being done now. That I appoint the person, they all come in, and then I'm appointing them. I don't think that's correct. Yes.
So your goal, when you say you want a lawyer, a businessman, and Board of Ed, is like the Board of Ed looking after our youth? Is that like your goal? Like when you say community stakeholder, the Board of Ed is looking after the youth and how we're taxing ourselves and how we're doing everything else like that, or like break it down a little bit for us.
So yeah, so the Board of Education, the Washington County's Teacher Association, that's the county's largest employer by far. And so they would have the largest diversity, and then they can be looking at it from how it's affecting, again, the education, the youth in the area. The city, the MML, is going to be looking at how it affects our towns. Meredith Medical Center, again, that's a large employer, your doctors, your healthcare. There's a lot of things. And that's what I was looking at. If there's other groups that we should be looking at, I'd have no problem. I just, again, I want to bring, that's why we're having this discussion. I just don't think how it is now, where anybody can go out and fill out a form and then the 5 commissioners that choose who they're appointing. That's what I don't agree with. Maybe these 5 groups go out and they can pull from a community stakeholder. So, you know.
So this plan then is going to be voted on by the commissioners?
Correct.
So it's just going to be created by the commissioners?
Yes.
They're the only body that's going to approve or amend it or whatever. So whatever we end up with.
Please speak up. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Please speak up.
Sure. So whatever we end up with is something that came from the commissioners, it's approved by them, and that's the end of it?
Yes. So, did you hear the whole question? Okay. So, yes, it doesn't have to come from us. If somebody here has a better idea, I'd love to take it. But yes, everything does have to be approved by the commissioners. If it's a change in the ordinance or change in the policy, that would have to be approved by the commissioners, and then that would become the new policy or ordinance. Unless it is a law that needs to be changed, then that law has to go to Annapolis for Annapolis to vote. So, and those are the things we got to look at. Is it an ordinance or is it the law? As a commissioner, we're not a home rule county, so we cannot change the law. That has to go to Annapolis to get changed. Yes.
Now, with these stakeholders that are going to be involved, would they be able to reach out to maybe a community person that may be working for them?
Yes, they could.
Versus instead of a business person, they might pick me.
Yeah, they could reach out to anybody they want. So that would be that group. They would be able to reach out to whoever they want. They're taking the nominations from whoever they want to take, and they would be giving that nomination to the Board of County Commissioners. So if the Chamber of Commerce wanted to appoint somebody, they have that right to appoint it. If the Teachers Association, if they want it, they would have somebody. And again, I'm willing to open, and I understand your concern, sir. But I want to see it as an improvement of where we're at now. And this was my thought. And if again, if there needs to be a way of improving this, I'm willing to do it. I don't think our current system's correct. Yes.
2 questions. One about phase 1, one about phase 2. So, am I understanding what you're saying as far as the nomination and appointment process is that each of the stakeholders would make a nomination? Are you anticipating that whatever the ordinance, revised ordinance, that the Board of County Commissioners must take their requirement, their nomination? Are you going to be required to take that nomination, or do the commissioners have veto power? That's question number 1.
Yeah. So by law, they would have veto power because by law they're the ones approving it. I would like to see that there would have to be some extenuating circumstance of why they would not approve a nomination.
The second question is on the policy side. You kind of touched on the fact that the current policy primarily focuses on financial benefit.
Yes.
And that you'd like to see that expanded. Can you talk a little bit more about that expansion? I mean, are you saying that if one of the commissioners commits a crime, we're trying to hold the commissioners to a higher standard if they commit a crime, for example? Is that an ethical breach? If they lie to the public about something, is that an ethical breach? And what, I guess part 2 of the second part is, what do you anticipate the authority or the teeth in the policy being? What can this new ethics commission do? Can they remove a commissioner? Do they have the authority to remove a commissioner?
So the first answer I would say is yes. So if a commissioner breaks the law or whatever, that could come up to be an ethical violation. If they lied, that could come up to be an ethical violation, depending on what it is and all that. So that would be there. The teeth, that's what I was talking about. Is it a law or is it an ordinance? So, and that's what these outside groups have got to look. What can we do under Maryland law? Does the ethical board have the right to remove somebody from office, and what would that what would that look like? So that would all be of what this group would have the power to do, and that's really what bringing this group of in the next, not 90 days, but once it gets enacted, 90 days of looking at what those teeth would be.
I mean, the reason I asked that question is not the commissioners, but recently in the last term, the Board of Education had an ethics issue that came before it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Board of Education member that was found guilty of the ethics violation ignored the rule.
Yep.
Until it was convenient for him or her to do what the Ethics Commission said that person should do.
Mm-hmm.
That tells me there were no teeth in that policy.
And you're right.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah, and you're right. The current policy has no teeth. There's none. So, and that's what part of this is to look at, is not just how they're appointed, but what is their overview, what is their purpose, and what teeth can we legally put on there. And that's why I want an outside group with community stakeholders taking a look at our ordinance, our policy, and our law, and what can we actually do. And if it is a law change, that we would be able to submit that, but again, that wouldn't happen until next year. So that would have to go to session, and then Annapolis, they have to vote on, the governor would have to make it a law for that to happen. So that's really why I'm looking at, hey, I want the appointment process, so we're making a step, we're making a progression, and then let's take a look at the second part of it, so that this will take effect in 2020. Yes?
Who does the Ethics Commission cover? I know that there are personnel issues that are handled by HR, but ethically, does it cover all county employees, elected officials, or who does it cover?
Yes, it does cover all county employees, but you have the HR and your compliance and grievance first. The main overview is your county elected officials and higher ups is really what it's for, because there's a second set that's covering county employees, and then your commissioners are still employees. So it's really looking at your elected body.
The appointees are also covered, but it's just concerning those 3 items right now.
Correct. Yeah. So you've got all the boards and commissions that are out there, all the appointees. That it covers all of those because they're not employees of the county.
How is it publicized to the personnel that it covers? What the steps are and what their channels of movements are? How do employees and elected officials know?
Well, so the employees, they have training, and actually just recently went through training through the grievance and complaint procedures. So that they're covered under that. I'm hoping, and I don't know this for sure, but all the people that are appointed to the boards and commissions are receiving the training on that. But I don't know that. I know the policy is on the website, the county's website. That's a great point that it should be put out there more.
Are you talking about having some sort of progressive discipline in place? For example, the first offense, or depending on how serious it is, you're given a verbal warning with maybe an email backup documenting it. Second time, maybe a letter in the file. Third time, suspension without pay. Fourth time, firing. Something like that.
I don't know at this point. That's what this group that's going to look at what the ordinance, the policies, and the laws are, and come up with what can we actually do. Because there's some things that a written warning's not good enough.
Right, depending on how serious it is.
Exactly.
I mean, it has to be, but you would have rules for that.
Yes.
But there are a lot of things that occur. For example, you just have 2 personalities that clash, a supervisor and a subordinate. Mm-hmm. And the supervisor's got it in for this guy.
Yep.
And so that's one of the reasons you would have progressive discipline. It has to be documented, and you have to go through a series of steps. Or it could be the other way around. And so again, progressive discipline will work on that.
And with that, and we already have that for the employees under the compliance and grievance procedures. That's already there. And that hopefully is being done properly, and we all know in some instances not, but that is definitely, that's already there for the employees. So it's not at the commissioner and the board's level. Yes.
So I'm sure that as part of this whole process that you've been doing for months now, you've looked at, you probably started before that, ethics commission structure and policies and whatever, all that stuff in other places, other counties, other municipalities, state level, maybe even other places. And I'm wondering if there are any that you think are sort of exemplary, like this is how it should be done when it's done well.
Well, so,
and if so, what those look like.
So here's the problem. I started looking at them, and then the problem that we have is we're one of 3 counties that are not a home rule county. And so that becomes a problem, because you're looking at a county that is a charter county or a home rule county, and they can make their own laws and do their own thing. We're one of 3 where we can't do those. So they've put in other rules and regulations on how they can have a county executive do certain things and have their county council do certain things where we don't have a county executive. Under our rule, the county commissioners are the executive and legislative branch. And so where you go to a county that's a charter county, they have a county executive, which is your executive, and they have your county council, which is your legislative branch. And so that automatically separates some things and makes it easier. We don't have that. So there's things that we just can't.
I see, so sort of best practices is a practice that we can't really implement.
Under a county executive rule, correct. So one of the other counties that is not a home rule, just like us, county commissioner, they have the exact same as we do, and they go by the state law minimum. And so that's when I started looking at it. I was like, oh, geez. So we have to do something a little bit better. So, yeah, saw that one.
So the next step is that a committee is being formed to look at what can and can't be done, what this might look like.
Exactly. So I'd like to do it in a 2-step process. I'd like to do it in, if we, try to get how they're appointed done, and then get a group of people together on looking at the policy, the procedures, and the laws. So, and get that done. That's how I'd like to see it.
I'm sorry, is that the same group?
No.
Oh, you're proposing 2 different.
So you're going to have a group that's going to nominate the people, and then you're going to have a group, that I'd like to see an outside person. Again, there's this gentleman from Mako that all he does is ethics policies throughout the state, and I'd like to see him, like to bring him in. So if this is what he's doing in the state of Maryland, and he's Mako, we're a member of Mako, let's use our resources that we already have. So with, again, some people from our own community.
So 4 or 5 on that committee?
Exactly. So.
And so the ethics the ethics committee would be basically looking at the county commissioners?
The county commissioners, and then the other commissions and boards. So you've got the Commission on Aging, you've got the Animal Control Board, there's the Disability Commission, there's the Airport Commission, the Golf Course Commission. So they'd be over all of those. So, yes.
What about law enforcement? Is he under that too, like the sheriff, for example?
The sheriff would be, yes. He's an elected official.
He's the only elected. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
I reside in a small town, south part of the county. One issue, I have had some complaint filed against the mayor or commissioner, saying the town attorney is going to be advising the ethics commission board. Would it be prudent to have a requirement to have a separate attorney kind of look at the complaint, because that attorney works for the town, especially in the town I reside in, where that attorney's pretty biased, and the county, city council people, they're right to the paycheck.
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about right now. Is I want to separate it, and that's what I think the step is to try to pull it out.
Now, granted, me and the town or the county's gonna have to pay hefty retainer fee to hire a different attorney to come in and look at that complaint, but
you suggested having one on the board, which I thought was a fabulous idea.
So
that basically what they do, they're just there just to, for any town municipality in the county, they'll hear any ethics commission?
Well, no. So this would be the county's ethics commission. So the town, if your town has its own ethics commission, then that was going to be under what the town's ethics commission is. So, and I will look on how that escalates above, but I don't know that answer. So
because the town I reside in, there's pretty serious ethics problems that aren't being addressed the way they should.
So, and that's the big part is we all see it and we don't like it. So what do we have to do to fix it? And that's what I'm trying to do, is at the county level, is try to fix it. If offline, if you want, I can, I'll look into it for you, and that's all that I can say. So.
Definitely appreciate that.
And if the county comes up with a good model, that would be a great thing for the municipalities perhaps to follow. Won't help you right now, but.